Today was Daytona 500 Media Day for the drivers, and it produced one very interesting quote that I wanted to delve deeper into. It's really the only quote I want to look at from Daytona 500 Media Day, and it's from a very polarizing driver in NASCAR. It's Denny Hamlin who said this quote. So obviously, depending on how you feel about it, might depend on how you feel about the quote, because that is actually what I believe for some people. If it was someone else that maybe said it, maybe they'd feel differently about it. But the quote from Denny was, quote, "When you tune into the Olympics, the most popular event is the 100-meter dash. It's not the 25-mile marathon. Maybe there's something to be said about that," end quote. Basically, what Denny Hamlin is trying to allude to is the length of these races and how some of them are really long for no reason, and that could be driving some people away as well. So I wanted to give my little opinion on his quote and basically what he's meaning by it, and all that stuff. So in my honest opinion, I have to agree with Denny Hamlin to a certain extent. Some of these tracks do not need the length of races that they give them. Some of these, Texas and Atlanta, they do not need a 500-mile race. At most, they need a 400-mile race. There are some tracks that do just fine with shorter races, okay? They don't all have to be 4 hours, 3.5 hours long. The only races that I say to keep really long: Daytona 500, Coke 600, Southern 500, Brickyard 400. The Talladega races, maybe the short tracks as well. But, 2-mile tracks, 2.5-mile tracks, depending on that track, 1.5-mile tracks, they don't have to be absurdly long. Pocono, 300 miles, 350 miles. Michigan, 300, 350 miles. Atlanta, 400 at most. Texas, 400 at most. Kentucky shouldn't even be on the schedule, so I don't know why I went there. But some people are taking this the wrong way, I believe. Some of them are basically, some fans are basically saying, back in the old days, these drivers never would have complained about it. Maybe you should just suck it up, and you're getting paid for this, so you should do it. And if the races do get shortened, I think your paycheck should get cut and slashed and stuff like that. And I think they're taking it the wrong way. What Denny Hamlin is saying is, to attract more fans, these races should be a lot shorter. Not everyone has the attention span to sit in front of the TV and watch cars drive in an oval for 3.5 to 4 hours. That's just too long for a lot of people, and sometimes when it's that long, it just draws on. It could be a good race, but if it's so long that you just kind of forget about the good moments of the race, then it shouldn't be that long. I think there are some races, 500 miles is way too long for a track like Texas or Atlanta. I keep bringing up those tracks. Those are 2 1.5-mile tracks that have 500-mile races, which in my opinion should only be at most, as I said, 400 miles. So what Denny's saying is partially true. I don't think he meant to slash every race down. I think he did mean that some races deserve to not be as long as they are, and I do agree with him on that sentiment. I just also think that the crown jewels, the big races of the season, Martinsville, Bristol, Daytona, Talladega, Darlington, Coke 600, all should stay where they are. Bristol, 500 miles there. I mean, maybe shorten that a little bit. 400 miles would be fine. Maybe same with Martinsville, but in my opinion, I think 500 miles works well for those tracks, the shorter tracks. Talladega, 500 miles there sounds pretty good. It's Talladega. But in my honest opinion, though, it also could get shortened down to 400, because as we've seen with plate racing as of late, drivers aren't just going to go, and make moves 50 laps into a 188-lap event when, why risk wrecking your car that early on in the race? But what Denny said, maybe, leave your thoughts down in the comments about what he said, what you think. But just looking back on it, right, the last few seasons in NASCAR, Watkins Glen has had the shortest race of the season, or one of the shortest races of the season. In fact, I think it was 2017, it broke the record for the shortest race in the modern era of NASCAR without it being like rain shortened or something. It was like just over 2 hours long. And then 2018's was just a little bit longer than that, not much longer than that. And you know what? I don't remember the last time Watkins Glen had a bad race. Whether that's about the racetrack or with how short it is, I don't know. But I think that the length of that race is just, and it makes it good because it doesn't draw it out, longer than it needs to be. It's a perfect length. It's like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours long. It's not long at all. I didn't check to see how long it is, but it's not long at all. And in my opinion, that would get more people to watch NASCAR if it wasn't as long. Another case in point, the first Kansas race from the 2018 season was probably one of the better first half races of 2018. And a big thing about it was up until the final 15 laps, it was on track to be a very, very short race. I mean, the race, I don't even know if it was going to be over 3 hours long. The red flag obviously happened and kind of lengthened the race a little bit. But before we got that rash of late cautions, it was a short race. And in my honest opinion, it was a good race. And I remember the night of that race, I just remember that race a lot, because I remember coming from a party from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, back up home, and that was the same night where I had an injury in my toe. So it was like I had ice on it all the way home, like 2 hours driving home, ice on my big toe, and I just remember it kind of, I remember watching that race with my laptop on my lap, me laying down with like 5 pillows, 3, 4, 5 pillows stacked up so I could put my leg up and keep it at an angle because it did hurt a lot. And I just remember that race was that night and watching that race, and I just remember commenting on it like, wow, this is a very short race, but I've also enjoyed the race. Like at that point in the season, it was one of the better races of the season. It still was. Like, I think that could have been rated as a top 10 race on 2018. It was a good race. I mean, there was battles for the lead. There was a good stage finish. There was a great finish. So, I think Hamlin does have a point here that races, some races will benefit if they were to get shortened. And I think NBC did a poll on if races should get shortened shortly thereafter. And the 3 choices were yes, but keep the majors the same, which is basically how I feel about it. Yes, all races shorter, or just flat out no. The one that did not get any love really was yes, all races shorter, got 14% of the vote. Yes, but keep majors the same, got 40% of the vote, and no got 46% of the vote. So basically, of 1,600 people, not really a majority, but more people think that races should not be shortened. Although, if you were to add up 40 and 14, that would be 54%. So technically, 54% think that races should be shorter than the no people. It's just kind of, it's kind of gotten split there. So, it's kind of more decisive decision. It's kind of split the fan base. I mean, I don't know if it split the whole fan base because we haven't really seen a poll where it's like 5,000 people vote. Only 1,600 people vote on that. So, I just think that is something that maybe NASCAR should look into for the future. They were thinking about shortening the schedule down to 28 races, which in my opinion is a little too short. I think 36 is a little too long. I think 28 is a little too short. Anywhere from like 30 to 34, in my opinion, would just be solid. I think 32 would really hit on the spot. Because you think about 28, there are so many tracks on the schedule as of now. If you were to give each one, one race, you would only have like 4 or 5 openings on the schedule. So, you need to do something else. 32 races, excuse me, in my opinion, would be good. Shortening some of the races would be good as well, but keeping the majors, longer. IndyCar does that pretty well. They have some of their major races at like 500 miles. The Indy 500 is the longest race of the season, and for a good reason. The Pocono races are normally one of the marquee events of the IndyCar season. They're longer too. So, I just think that if NASCAR were to do that, I think that they should look into that and maybe just see how it would work out, because I think it would help more people get into NASCAR easier. Because sitting down on the couch and watching a race for 3 to 4 hours, every Sunday doesn't, that's not really that great. When it starts like, dragging on, and you don't really, you start to lose interest, once it starts dragging on a little bit. So, leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree with Hamlin's comment? Do you disagree with Hamlin's comment? Do you disagree with it because you don't like Hamlin? Do you agree with it because you do like Hamlin? I think he makes a valid point that, it is something that is maybe, keeping fans away from watching NASCAR, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's just my view on it. I think NASCAR should shorten some races, but not all the races. Those big races, they should just leave alone and let the drivers run full out through those ones. So I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys for the next video.